Hello everyone. So today we will be talking about JavaScript promises. As you might remember from this API learning video, that we used .then to use promises. So what were we doing? I will be talking about that. So firstly, we'll have to create a promise like this from here, and I will be talking about these methods as well. But let's create a promise first, and let's assign it to some variable. Let's say Arshad promise. I'll name the promise Arshad promise, and it will then create a new promise, and then it will take two parameters. And let's delete this. We don't want the timeout to affect this. Let's say if true, we'd do a resolve, and we'll say food delivered, let's say, and else we do reject, and we do food is not delivered. We're getting a warning because it will always be true, because by default it's always true in JavaScript. Let's assign it to some boolean value. Let's say promise value, and then assign it to true, and let's pass in this. Okay, so now it's looking okay. So now if it is true, our promise will be resolved, and otherwise it will be rejected. So what is resolve and what is reject? So basically let's have a read here. So promise.resolve, a promise in JavaScript is much like a promise in real life. Either it is resolved or fulfilled, or it is rejected or not kept, let's say. So the promise.resolve static method resolves a given value to a promise. If the value is a promise, that promise is returned. If the value is a thenable meaning the method we call that then, we'll call the .then method, with two callbacks it prepared. Okay, so basically we can create a promise and then pass in two parameters like resolve, reject. So we can define what will happen if the promise is fulfilled or successfully resolved, or what will happen if we reject the promise or it is not fulfilled for some reason. We also have another state called pending. So basically promises are used in asynchronous operations. So when we have some delay, let's say we are fetching data from this URL, which will make which our browser will make a API call, and then would take some time to be resolved or rejected, right? So then we are doing .then and making sure if it is resolved, we're doing .then. Otherwise we can do a .catch method as well, and then pass in error as a input and log the error as well. We are getting an error because of this semicolon here. If we delete that, as you can see, .then and then .catch. We can also use .finally as well, and finally we'd take nothing and just log out finally. So what's happening basically? So we are defining a fetch API. So we are going to fetch from this API, and then when it is resolved, then we are taking the response and turning it to JSON, and then we are taking that JSON data and then logging it. As you can see, if we go to our browser, we can see this data, which is from script.js line 3. As you can read right here, line 3. So line 3 is logging out the data. Line 4 is not catching an error because the promise is successfully resolved, so there's no error. Let's just do intentionally, let's create an error, and as we can see, we're not getting the data here, as you can see from line 3, but we are not getting the error as well. I might want to do it here. Let's try to, oops, my bad, reload. Okay, it's still not working, a bit weird. Okay, we'll just then do finally, and we can run the final block of the code, as we can see right here as well. Where's the finally part? I don't see it, never mind. So promise will either reject or resolve. We have these two states. Let's understand this first. So then let's do what we want to do is Ashad promise dot then, and then taking the, let's say, message, and then log out the message. So now what we'll get is we want to promise value. Let's comment this one out, and let's resolve this comment, promise first. And as you can see, we get food delivered right here. So we are resolving the promise. Let's do false here, and now food is not delivered. As you can see, we see the message as well and the error as well. It is an uncaught error. Let's do a dot catch and then do error, log out the error, and as you can see, we are logging out the error as food is not delivered. So until then we were not using dot catch, and that's why it says uncaught in promise. So we did not catch the error. We need to use dot catch method to handle the error as well. So I think in this API the dot catch or the reject method is not defined, probably, I'm not sure. That's why we were not getting any error message. But in our this promise, as you can see, we get an error handling or the reject message as well, which is food is not delivered. As you can see, we have caught the error by using dot catch method. And we also can do finally, and let's do another function and just say finally we can eat. Finally we can eat. And as you can see, finally we can eat. This finally method will run regardless of what we do. We can resolve the promise, we can reject the promise, but this finally method will run regardless of the our promise result. Okay, so basically promises, these promises are just like real life promises. We can either resolve or keep our promises or fulfill our promises, or we can reject or unfulfill, or not unfulfill, I mean reject or not fulfill our promise. So basically it's just like a real life promise. So we can see other methods here as well. So we can do resolve it like this, or we can do it like this as well. We can just take in a value. Let's copy this and let's put this thing further down, and let's just see what it does. 1 2 3, finally we can eat. Let's comment this one out to avoid confusion. Okay, so basically we have a promise, and we have a promise one name, constant variable, and we have promise dot resolve. As you can see, this is not a new promise, so it does not need to be defined like this. We're just resolving it. So promise dot resolve 1 2 3, and dot then we are taking the value and console logging the value, and as you can see we get 1 2 3 right here. So what if we do promise dot reject? We have not used the catch yet, so we will get an uncaught error, of course. Uncaught error in promise 1 2 3. Okay, so let's do a catch of this, and we would run another function, and let's try to take the error message as an input and then log it out as an as in console log, I mean. So the promise reject, let's say not 1 to 3, and as you can see it says not 1 to 3. But if we do a promise resolve, we do 1 to 3. We can't do that in same line, I suppose, but let's do a resolve and do 1 to 3. And as you can see, we get log 1 to 3 right here, not in the catch block. So let's do finally, and let's say in finally that we'll get 1 to 3. Okay, we need to run a function here, my bad. And we need to log as well, my bad. Okay, now we can see that we'll get 1 to 3. So this finally will run regardless of our promise resolved or rejected, as I've said previously. So that's the basics of promises. So basically promise is just like real life promise, will get resolve or reject value, and there's also a pending value. Let's see some other things, like let's say promise.all. We also have a method of promise.all. So let's say we have 3 promises, we can resolve all of them together. Promise 1 is already defined here. Let's make it promise 4. And what we get? We get an array and all promises are resolved. So basically what's happening here, let's comment this out to avoid confusion. Okay, so we have a promise 4 which is doing a promise.resolve. So it is resolved instantly and we get the result instantly. We can just use we just have to use dot then and take in the values and log. But we are doing promise.all and we are passing in arguments as these promises, promise 4, promise 2, promise 3, and as you can see we are resolving all of them, and we are doing dot then values. We are logging out the values, and as we are giving argument as an array, we are getting results out as an array as well. So let's say we do reject this. What will happen now? There will be an uncaught error. Of course, we have to handle these errors. We have to catch these errors. And in catch block, we can take in the error message as an input and then log it out. And as you can see, we get 3 here. The promise is now rejected because promise.all, in order to use promise.all, we have to resolve all the promises. Let's see if it says here, the promise.all static method takes an iterable of promises and input, returns a single promise. This return promise fulfills when all of the input promise fulfill. Okay, so when all of the input promises are not fulfilled, it will not work and it will be rejected. As you can see, when we are rejecting this, that is going to the catch block, and we are just logging out the error message, which is 3. We can do something like error as well, error, as you can see. But if we do resolve it and we use promise.all, we will get an array, and we will be resolving all of the promises. We need to change the error to success here, and as you can see, success 42, and then we are resolving it inside here saying foo. So set timeout is a different function which is taking 3 argument, like resolve and the delay of 100 seconds and then the result. Set timeout is a separate topic and we will be talking about that in other videos. Let's try to focus on promise. So promise.all will resolve all the promises, but all the promises must be resolved. Not a single one can be rejected. If a single one is rejected, it will all be rejected. Let's do promise.raise. So in order to understand promise.raise, we need to use a set timeout. So set timeout is just a method to delay things. We can use a set timeout and delay our responses here. As you can see, we are passing in the resolve here, and we are doing a delay of 500, and then we're doing the resolve of and say the result will be 1. The text will be 1. The when it is resolved, it will say 1. So we are doing promise.raise. What promise.raise does is a static method that takes an iterable of promises as input and returns a single promise. This return promise settles with the eventual state of the first promise that settles. So basically, as the name suggests, it's a race. So whichever one will come first will be the winner. So in this case, we have a delay of 100 seconds here. 100 milliseconds, my bad, 100 milliseconds here, and we have another one which is 500 milliseconds here. So if we save this and go to our browser, we see 2 here, because 2 has the delay of 100 seconds, 100 milliseconds, my bad, 100 milliseconds, and 1 has the delay of 500 milliseconds. If we make this 1000 or a 1 second delay, now we should see 1 as the result, because this is a race. Whoever one wins will be the winner, or that will be resolved only, and we can see that value only because we are taking only one value from these two promises, whichever one wins first. So let's say I make 2 API calls, like here, not like here, but we make 2 API calls and we do a promise.raise. So whichever server sends us the request back first will be the winner, and the value will be logged here. Okay, so let's do 100 and 500 milliseconds. We also have promise.any. So promise.any is a static method, takes an iterable of promises as input and returns a single promise. This returned promise fulfills when when any of the inputs promises fulfills. With the first fulfillment value, it rejects when all of the inputs promises reject. Okay, so basically what it says is, when it is rejected, no, let me understand it first. This return promise fulfills when any of the inputs promises fulfill. With the first fulfillment value, it rejects when all of the inputs promise reject. Okay, so when all of the promises rejects, it rejects as well. If any of them is successful or resolved, then among them we have to get the firster one, just like raise here. So let's copy this page, code, and understand things better, and comment this one out. Okay, so what's happening here? We are getting quick here. So we have a first promise which is rejected. Sorry about that. So this first promise is rejected, and the second and third promise is resolved, but whichever one will be faster should be the winner here, just like race. But even if we have a rejected thing, we get the result. But I think in race, if we have a reject, we will not see. Okay, so I'm a bit confused about this myself, but this is not used as much. So that's why I don't know as much. But promise.all and resolve, reject, and dot then, these are the things that are most used. So we should be focusing on these actually for now. Maybe we will be talking about these when we need these, and we won't really need it, I think. But yeah, it's good to know, of course. So yeah, That's pretty much it about promises. So I hope you guys understood what's happening. Sorry about that. So we are making a new promise, and then there's a resolve and a reject condition. So both have different messages, and we would do dot then and get the message from here as an input, like this message, and then we can log out the message, food delivered. And if we pass in false, or we get into the reject part, we would get food is not delivered, and finally is run regardless of uh, successful or not. And we can chain multiple dot then as well. We can do a log of, let's say, hello, and it's because it's rejected, it's going to the cache block directly. And as you can see, we get food delivered as the message, and then we see hello, and then we see finally we can eat. We can do another one, hello too. So basically it's chaining dot thens, and then if there's an error, we run to catch method. Basically not an error, only the if the promise is rejected. We can have a better understanding of this by going to React hot toast, let's say. So whenever we use asynchronous uh, operations, or run some these of promises, so we do sorry about that, success like this, or error like this, or saving or loading like this. So basically there are three parts of promises: pending, fulfilled, and rejected. And we have talked about this already. So if you have any issue understanding any of these topics, any of the things I have talked about, you did not understand, make sure to comment down below or knock me on my socials. I'd be happy to help. Thank you very much, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you.